I'll start with my sweater on, even though it's too warm to be wearing a sweater, but I'll start with that on. Even though I didn't start with it on, I already started with it off. This is Dr. Annette Feravich. I am the teacher, and we are here in the classroom, and we are almost halfway done, but not quite halfway done, with our book, The Sign of the Bear. Chapter 10. He felt weak with relief when next morning a teen walked stiffly into the cabin and sat down at the table. Stumbling over himself, he set about the lesson. As soon as he could, he picked up Robinson Crusoe. In the night, he had carefully thought out just what he was going to say if a teen had ever given him another chance. Now he had to talk fast because he could see that a teen was set against hearing any more of this book. "Let me go on," he pleaded. "It's different from now on. Friday, that's what Robinson Crusoe named him, doesn't kneel anymore." "Not slave?" "No," Matt lied. "After that, they get to be, well, companions. They share everything together." Ignoring the suspicion on a teen's face, Matt began hurriedly to read. He was thankful that he knew the book so well that he was able to see when trouble might be coming. One of the first words Crusoe taught his man Friday was the word master. Luckily, he caught that one in time. And it was true, Crusoe and his new companion did go about together sharing their adventures. Only Matt thought it would have been better, perhaps, if Friday hadn't been quite so thick-headed. After all, there must have been a thing or two about that desert island that a native who had lived there all his life could have taught Robinson Crusoe. When Matt closed the book, a teen nodded. Then, as so many times before, he took Matt by surprise. "You like go fish?" he asked. "I sure would," Matt said gratefully. Stopping to pick up his fish pole from beside the door, he ran to overtake the Indian boy who strode ahead. He knew his grin was stretching from one ear to the other, but he couldn't hide his feelings as a teen did. They walked some distance, Matt managing to keep pace with the Indian's swift stride, determined not to let a teen know that his ankle was aching. They seemed to be following no particular trail. Finally, they came out on a part of the creek that Matt had not seen before. It was shallow here, studded with rocks and pebbles, so that the water rippling over them made little rapids or collected in quiet pools. Here a teen stopped, broke a sapling, and instead of making a fish pole, drew his knife from his pouch and quickly shaved a sharp point, making a spear. Then he stepped gently into the stream. Matt stood watching. A teen stood motionless, peering intently into a pool of clear water. All at once, he stooped, darted his spear with one quick stroke, and came up with a glittering fish. He studied it for a moment. "Too small," he decided. To Matt's astonishment, he spoke to the fish quite solemnly, a few incomprehensible words, then tossed it back into the stream. In a few moments, he had speared another, which he judged large enough to keep. "Do same," he ordered now, coming back to the bank. He handed Matt the spear. He would just look ridiculous, Matt knew before he started. He waded in and stood up to his knees, looking down into the sliding water. Presently a fish darted past. At least he thought it was a fish. It was hard to tell which was shadow and which might be a fish. At any rate, it was gone before he got his spear into the water. Presently he saw another, this one quite definitely a fish, calmly drifting in the pool. He jabbed at it hopelessly. He was sure his stick actually touched the slippery thing. He lunged at it, lost his footing, and went down with a splash that would scare off any fish for miles around. When he came up dripping, he saw a teen watching him with a horrid grin. Suddenly he felt hot in spite of the icy water. Why had a teen brought him out here anyway? Had a teen just wanted to show off his cleverness and make Matt look more clumsy than ever? Was this a teen's answer in case Matt had any idea in his head about being a Robinson Crusoe? For a moment, Matt glared back at a teen with a scowl as black as any Indian's. Then he wiped his nose with the back of his hand and slashed back to the bank. He snatched up his pole and line and poked about under the wet leaves and found a good juicy worm and fitted it to his hook. I'll do it my own way, he said. I can catch plenty of fish with this, and that's what matters. A teen sat on the bank and watched. To Matt's satisfaction, in no time there was a tug on his line, a strong one. An impressive-looking fish rose to the surface, thrashing fiercely. Matt gave a jerk, and the line came swinging out of the water so suddenly that he almost lost his footing again. It was empty. Fish broke line, a teen observed, as if anyone couldn't see that. Furious at a teen, at the fish, and at himself, Matt examined the break, unable to face the Indian. He had lost more than a good fish. His hook had disappeared as well. The only hook he had. Of course, a teen noticed. Those black eyes never missed anything. Make new hook, he suggested. Without even getting to his feet, he reached out and broke a twig off a maple sapling. Out came the crooked knife again. In a few strokes, he cut a piece as long as his little finger, carved a groove around the middle, and whittled both ends into sharp points. Now he stepped into the water and tied Matt's line expertly around the groove. Put on 2 worms, he said. Cover up all hook. He didn't offer to find the worms. Matt had lost all interest in fishing. He knew that somehow or other he would just provide more amusement for a teen, but he couldn't refuse. He didn't have to wait long before another fish caught hold. This time he landed it neatly. Good, said a teen from the bank. Big. Matt was trying to get it off the line. He swallowed the whole hook, he said. Better white man's hook, a teen said. Turn around inside fish, not get away. Back on the mat, Matt slid the fish and extracted the hook and his line. But the thin twig had broken in half. Easy make new hook, a teen said. Make many hooks. Of course, looking down at the simple thing in his hand, Matt realized that he never again need worry about losing a hook. He could make a new one wherever he happened to be. It was another necessary thing that a teen had shown him, just as he had made the snare. He wasn't sure why a teen had bothered, but grudgingly he had to admit that a teen had proved to him once again that he didn't always have to depend on white man's tools. All at once he was hungry. The sun was straight overhead, and it would be a long tramp back through the woods before he could cook his fish. Now he saw that a teen had the same thought. The Indian was heaping up a small pile of pine needles and grass. He drew from the musket skin pouch a piece of hard stone with bits of quartz embedded in it. Striking it with his knife, he soon had a spark, which he blew into a flame. I could have done that myself, Matt thought. In fact, he had done it many times, but he had not realized that he could use a common stone as well as his flint. Get fish ready, a teen ordered now, pointing to the 2 fish on the bank. Matt did not like his masterful tone, but he did as he was told. By the time he had the 2 fish split and gutted and washed in the creek, a teen had a fire blazing. Matt was curious to see how he would go about the cooking. He watched as a teen cut 2 short branches, bending them first to make sure they were green. He trimmed and sharpened them rapidly. Then he thrust a pointed end into each fish from head to tail. A small green stick was set crosswise inside the fish to hold the sides apart. He handed 1 stick to Matt. One on each side of the fire, the 2 boys squatted and held their sticks in the blaze. From time to time, a teen fed the fire with dry twigs. When the flesh was crisp and brown, they ate, still silently. Matt licked his fingers. His resentment had vanished along with his hunger. Golly, he said, that was the best fish I ever ate. Good, said a teen. Across the fire, he looked at Matt, and his eyes gleamed. He was laughing again, but somehow not with scorn. What did you say to that fish you threw back? Matt was still curious. I say to him not to tell other fish, a teen said seriously. Not scare away. You actually think a fish could understand? A teen shrugged. Fish know many things, he replied. Matt sat pondering a strange idea. Well, it seemed to work, he said finally. At least the other fish came along. A wide grin spread slowly across the teen's face. It was the first time Matt had seen him smile. Chapter 11. One morning, Matt laid his sticks in a row. 7 sticks, each with 7 notches. That meant that it was well into August. The silk tassels were glistening on the cornstalk. The hard green pumpkins nestling underneath the stalks were rounding out and taking on the coating of orange. It was time for his father to be coming. At any moment, he might look out and see him walking into the clearing, bringing his mother and Sarah and the new baby. It was strange to think there was a member of the family he had never seen. Was it a boy or a girl? It would be a fine thing to have them sitting around the table again. He hoped his mother would take over the reading. He hoped that his mother would take over the reading lessons, which were going badly. A teen still came almost every day, though there was no longer any need for him to bring meat or fish. Matt couldn't make out why the Indian kept coming, since he made it so plain he disliked the lessons. So often a teen made him feel uncomfortable and ridiculous. But he had to admit that on the days when a teen did not come, the hours went by slowly. Often a teen seemed in no hurry to leave when the morning's lesson was over. "Look, see if catch rabbit," he might suggest, and together they would go out to check the snares, or they would tramp along the creek to a good spot for fishing. A teen seemed to have plenty of time on his hands. Sometimes he would just hang around and watch Matt do the chores. He would stand at the edge of the corn patch and look on while Matt pulled up weeds. "Squaw work," he commented once. Matt flushed. "We think it's a man's work," he retorted. A teen said nothing. He did not offer to help. After a time, he just wandered off without saying goodbye. It must be mighty pleasant, Matt thought to himself, to just hunt and fish all day long and not have any work to do. That wasn't his father's way, and it wouldn't ever be his. The work was always waiting to be done. But if he got the corn patch cleared and the wood chopped today, he could go fishing with a teen tomorrow, if a teen invited him. Sometimes a teen brought an old dog with him. It was about the sorriest looking hound Matt had ever seen, with a coat of coarse brown hair, a mangy tail, and whitish patches on his face that gave it a clownish look. Its long pointed nose was misshapen, with bumps and bristles. By the look of his ears, it had survived many battles. The instant it spied Matt, a ridge of hair went straight up on its back, and it let out a mean growl. A teen cuffed it sharply, and after that it was quiet, but it watched the white stranger with wary eyes and kept its distance. Matt tried not to show his distrust. "What's his name?" he asked politely. A teen shrugged. "No name. Ari, miss. Dog." "If he doesn't have a name, how can he come when you call him?" "Him my dog, him come." As though he knew what a teen had said, the scruffy tail began to weave back and forth. "Piz what?" a teen said. "Good for nothing. No good for hunt. No sense. Him fight anything. Bear, moose." There was no mistaking the pride in a teen's voice. "What's wrong with his nose?" A teen grinned. "Him fight anything. Chase Kagwa. What white man call needles all over. Oh, a porcupine. Golly, that must have hurt. Put out many needles, some very deep, not come out. Dog not feel them now." Told you, it was getting warm. It would get warm. Woo! Michigan sunshine, Michigan weather. Maybe not, Matt thought, but he doubted those quills had improved the dog's disposition. He didn't fancy this dog of a teen's. During the lesson, the dog prowled about outside the cabin and finally thumped down on the path to bite and scratch at fleas. When a teen came out, the dog leaped up, prancing and yapping as though a teen had been gone for days. Matt thought a little better of him for that. It minded him how his father's dog had made a fuss every time his father came home. That old hound must have just about wagged its tail off when his father came back from Maine. The fact was, Matt was a little jealous of a teen. A dog would be mighty fine company here in the woods, no matter how scrawny it looked. But not this one. No matter how often the dog came with the teen, he never let Matt touch him, nor did Matt like him any better. He was certainly no good at hunting. When the two boys walked through the woods, the dog zigzagged ahead, sending squirrels racing up trees and jays chattering and running any chance of a catch. Matt wondered why a teen wanted him along. A teen didn't pay him any mind except to shout at him and cuff him when he was too noisy. But for all his show of indifference, it was plain to Matt that a teen thought a sight of that dog. A teen had not brought the dog with him the day that he led Matt a long distance into a part of the forest that Matt had never seen. Following after him, Matt began to feel uneasy. If a teen should take himself off suddenly, as he had a way of doing, Matt was not sure he could find his way back to the cabin. It occurred to him that a teen knew this, that perhaps a teen had brought him so far just to show him how helpless he really was, how all the words in a white man's book were of no use to him in the woods. Yet he did not think this would happen. For some reason he could not explain to himself. He trusted a teen. He didn't really like him. When the Indian got that disdainful look in his eyes, Matt hated him. But somehow, as they sat side by side day after day doing the lessons that neither of them wanted to do, something had changed. Perhaps it had been Robinson Crusoe or the tramping through the woods together. They didn't like each other, but they were no longer enemies. When they came upon a row of short tree stumps, birch and aspen cut off close to the ground, Matt's heart gave a leap. Were there settlers nearby, or Indians? There was no proper clearing. Then he noticed that whoever had cut the trees had left jagged points on each one. No axe would cut a tree that way. He could see marks where the trees had been dragged along the ground. In a few steps, the boys came out of the bank with an unfamiliar creek. There Matt saw what had happened to those trees. They had been piled in a mound right over the water from one bank to the other. Water trickled through them in tiny cascades. Behind the piled up branches, a small pond stretched smooth and still. "It's a beaver dam," he exclaimed. "The first one I've ever seen." "Quabbit," said a teen. Have right tail. Their beaver wigwam. He pointed to a heap of branches at one side, some of them new with green leaves still clinging. Matt stepped closer to look. Instantly there was a crack of a rifle. A ring of water tripled the surface of the pond. Near its edge a black head appeared for just a flash and vanished again in a sputter of bubbles. A teen laughed at the way Matt had started. "Beaver make big noise with tail," he explained. "I thought someone had shot a gun," Matt said. "I wish I had my rifle now." A teen scowled. "Not shoot," he warned. "Not white man, not Indian. Young beaver not ready." He pointed to a tree nearby. "Sign of beaver," he said. "Belonged to family." Carved on the bark, Matt could make out the crude figure of an animal that could, with some imagination, be a beaver. "Sign show beaver house belong to people of Beaver," a teen explained. "By and by, when young beaver all grown, people of Beaver hunt here. No one hunt but people of Beaver." "You mean just from another mark on the tree another hunter would not shoot here?" "That our way," a teen said gravely. "All Indian understand." Would a white man understand? Matt wondered. He thought of Ben with his stolen rifle. It wasn't likely Ben would respect an Indian sign, but he must remember to warn his father. When it seemed the beaver did not intend to show itself again, the two boys climbed back up to the bank. At the rows of stumps, a teen halted and signaled for Matt to go ahead. "Show way to cabin," he ordered. All Matt's suspicions came rushing back. Did a teen intend to sneak off behind his back and leave him to find his own way home? "Is this some kind of trick?" he demanded hotly. A teen looked stern. "Not trick," he said. "Matt need learn." To Matt's relief, he took the lead again. After a short distance, he stopped and pointed to a broken stick leaning in the direction of the creek. A little farther on, there was a small stone set against a larger one. Not far away, a tuft of dried grass dangled from a branch of a small tree. "Indian make sign," a teen said. "Always make sign to tell way. Matt must same, not get lost in forest." Now Matt remembered how a teen had paused every so often, sometimes to break off a branch that hung in their path, once to nudge aside a stone with the toe of his moccasin. He had done these things so quickly that Matt had paid no mind. He saw now that a teen had carefully been leaving markers. Of course, he exclaimed, but my father always made blazes on the tree with his knife. A teen nodded. That white man's way. Indian maybe not want to show where he go, not want hunters to find Beaver house. So these were secret signs, nothing anyone following them would notice. It would take sharp eyes to find them, even if you knew they were there. Matt do same, a teen repeated, always make sign to show way back. Matt was ashamed of his suspicions. A teen had only meant to help him. If only he didn't have to be so superior about it. He plodded along behind a teen, trying to spot the signs before a teen could point them out. All at once, as a thought struck him, he almost laughed out loud. He remembered Robinson Crusoe and his man Friday. He and a teen had sure enough turned that story right around. Whenever they went a few steps from the cabin, it was the brown savage who strode ahead, leading the way, knowing just what to do and doing it quickly and skillfully. And Matt, a puny sort of Robinson Crusoe, tagged along behind, grateful for the smallest sign that he could do anything right. It wasn't that he wanted to be a master, and the idea of teens being anyone's slave was not to be thought of. He just wished he could make a teen think a little better of him. He wanted a teen to look at him without the gleam of amusement in his eyes. He wished that it were possible for him to win a teen's respect. As though a teen sensed that Matt was disgruntled, he stopped, whipped out a knife, and neatly sliced off 2 shining gobs of dried sap from a nearby spruce. He grinned and held out one of them like a peace offering. "Chaw," he ordered. He popped the other piece in his mouth and began to chew with evident pleasure. Gingerly, Matt copied him. The gob fell to pieces between his teeth, filling his mouth with bitter juice. He wanted to spit it out in disgust, but a teen plainly enjoyed the stuff, so he stubbornly forced his jaw to keep moving. In a moment, the bits came together in a rubbery gum, and the first bitterness gave way to a fresh, piney taste. To his surprise, it was very good. The 2 boys tramped on, chewing companionably. Once more, Matt acknowledged himself. A teen had taught him another secret of the forest. We will be on chapter 12 when we return tomorrow, and that's about as halfway through the book as we can get. This is Dr. Annette Feravich. Thanks for joining me. I will likely be back for an early bird in a few minutes, and we're going to do some landscaping. What do I mean by that? I don't mean land. I mean we're going to scape the land here, looking for trees and plants and all kinds of things that we can observe and ask questions about, because that's the first part of the scientific method. This is Dr. Annette Feravich. Thanks for joining me in the reading room. I'm the teacher. You are here in the classroom.